Ah, Splatoon, the kid-friendly first-person shooter game franchise where you just spray ink, swim around and have a good innocent time. Or do you? I mean, just look at this. It's so adorable and nice. There's no way this game has a batshit crazy lore with a race that has become an outside of society, a mass-murdering war criminal who kills kids for a living, and a slow, painful end to all humanity. No, just look at it. It has Dance Dance Revolution in it. Okay, so a thing that most people who play Splatoon know is that it has a weird background with a lot of weird elements, both in the that's waggy and the oh, that's a bit more than weird kind of sense, making it the perfect material for an iceberg chart. This iceberg chart was made by Redditor /Deco Scrubber back in December, so it's actually pretty new and recent. This iceberg chart, unlike the others I've covered before in the past, has a lot of self-made theories on it. Mostly it's just things about the subject, but here she has not only dug down the rabbit hole of the internet, but she's also done some theories herself, which is pretty cool. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, it has been a hard minute since I played Splatoon myself, and I've never really played Octo expansions, even though I would love to play it, but I'm too greedy to buy it, so I had to look some of the things up myself just to catch up, you know. And just so we're clear, yes, this is going to have a lot of spoilers for the game and Octo expansion in it. But it's been years, so why not dig down the rabbit hole anyways? I mean, you've had the time to play it, right? And before we start, here's a quick run-up of the most important things to know. So, 2 games, 1 DLC, Inklings, No Humans, Outlinks, Sea Scrolls, and Splat. That should be the basics out of the way, so I don't see any reason to keep you waiting. Now, let's dig down. Corporatism in Inkopolis. So we're starting off strong on this one. So corporatism is a political ideology which advocates for the organization of society by corporate groups such as agriculture, labor, military, scientific, or guild association, and it's a syndicalist ideology. I'm sorry, but I don't think these cute little inklings are commies. I think the creator of this iceberg might mean corporatocracy, which is an ideology where businesses and corporations run the state. I mean, there's a lot of businesses and corporations and stuff, but I doubt they really have that high of a function. I just think it's popular with the theme of Splatoon. Blitz. Well, the second one, and I'm already confused. The word Blitz is used twice in Splatoon. There's the band Blitz It, and then there's a game mode of Clan Blitz. The word Blitz never really gets used on its own, so I'm kind of confused on what it's supposed to mean. But it just says Blitz, and when you search Splatoon Blitz, nothing comes up, so I'm greatly confused on this one. It is the highest one, or the second highest at least, but I'll just let this one pass, alright? Dogs are extinct. Yeah, sorry to tell you, but dogs didn't make it into the Splatoon games. I'm sorry. They died during the flooding of Earth, along with most other mammals on Earth. Most animals who live on land today can't be found in the Splatoon universe at all because they died. The only exception is Judd, who got sent to the future, kind of, by being frozen down until they got discovered by the Inklings. Squids evolved from the sea but can't swim anymore. So a thing that most people who have played Splatoon before is wondering is, why can't the Inklings swim? I mean, they evolved from squids, and they are squids, so why can't they swim? We have to remember that these squids aren't squids anymore, they've evolved into a whole new species. So even though they used to be able to swim, they've lost that ability through evolution. This isn't something new and crazy, it did happen before actually in real life, in marine history. The blue whale used to walk on Earth, but then just decided to walk back to the ocean and become a whale. So even though it looks like a weird question, just give them time and it'll make sense. Critique on modern culture. Splatoon is thought to have a lot of critiques against modern day culture, probably since a lot of kids play Nintendo, so their message would hit the target audience. The main form of critique would be Sea Scroll number 26, which depicts the following. The description says, a 12,000-year-old fossil of a creature with an odd internal skeleton. Its small skull indicates the creature was likely primitive, with little intelligence. This specimen appears to have been fossilized in the middle of some kind of ritual. Some say this is Nintendo's way of saying that humans are spending too much time playing games and too little time actually helping the environment, which end up killing all humans in the Splatoon timeline. This is only a fan theory though, since it would be a very weird message coming from a company like Nintendo. I mean, they literally make money off of you playing games, so why would they say to stop it? The rest of Inkopolis. When it comes to Inkopolis, the city where most of the games are played in and where the starting position of the game is, it's really not that well explored. The only two places we truly can see and explore in Inkopolis is Inkopolis Square and Inkopolis Plaza in both Splatoon 1 and 2. You can explore a bit of the city during the tutorials, but mostly you just have to look at the skyline of the Plaza or the Square to get a greater view of the city. What you can see from the starting positions of both Splatoon 1 and 2 is a lot of tall buildings and skyscrapers. So I would guess this is like a major city, if not the capital, of whichever country we're in. Real birds. While most animals have been wiped out or have evolved from our timeline, birds still exist throughout the game. This still makes sense, since just because the land got flooded doesn't mean that birds aren't gonna survive. Well, birds who can survive off the ocean is gonna survive, but most other birds are gonna die. But again, some parts of Earth was most likely above sea level, like mountains and such, so some birds might have survived. So real birds, that's a real improvement, I would say, because we all know that birds today are all fake and are robots and drones from the government. I mean, that's just pure knowledge. Octolink Power Crisis. So one of the main themes of the hero modes of both Splatoon 1 and 2 is power and power sources. In both games, the Great Sapfish has been stolen, which is a major source of power in the whole of Inkopolis, along with a bunch of smaller sapfish. It's the Octarians who are behind the whole coup. In each level, you're supposed to recapture a sapfish and take it back to Inkopolis, while the Great Sapfish is used in the final levels. One question that arises is, why? Why would they steal such a great amount of power? Well, the Octolinks use them as their own power source to both fuel their bases and their weapons. The reason why they stole the sapfish, other than pure sabotage, might be that they don't have any power of their own power crisis of a sort. They are a force on the ground and away from the big cities because of the tension between Octolinks and Inklings, so it makes sense that they need some kind of power source from a bigger place, because there's not that much power in Octo Valley. I can already see that. Captain Cuttlefish can't produce ink. Captain Craig Cuttlefish is the guide of the main character during the game's hero modes, along with Cal and Marie, Agent 2 and 3. He's also in Splatoon's Octo expansion. There's a lot to know about him, but a weird fact is that he can't produce ink. This is a thing that most characters in the Splatoon universe can do, but apparently not him. He also isn't affected by ink like other characters or squids in this universe. The reason why he can't produce ink is most likely just because he's old. Is it supposed to be a comparison to something? Probably. You're gonna have to use your imagination to find out what that is. Human skeletons in sunken sea scrolls. We have gone over this one before, but yes, a skeleton can be found in the scrolls of Splatoon 1. Well, you know why, we just talked about it, so whatever. Callie and Marie's family. Callie and Marie's family and background is a bit of a mystery, but we do have some ideas of who they are and where they grew up. We do know that Marie has parents, as Marie went home to Calamari County, their home place, to meet them during the events which led up to the single player campaign in Splatoon 2. Callies are a bit harder to find. We don't know her parents or who they are, but we can guess that they are from Calamari County since they are cousins. We also do know that Captain Cuttlefish is Callie and Marie's grandpa, as seen in the events in the hero mode in Splatoon 1. And that is also all we need to know, cause this is private business, I mean, come on. Pearl's hidden shockwave ability. So apparently Pearl's voice can create a massive shockwave. Sucking Sea Scroll 1 shows an incident in which a young Pearl destroyed various parts of a youth folk song contest with only her voice. Apparently her shockwaves can be concentrated into a powerful laser able to counteract a mostly charged cannon designed to destroy all sentient life. Because she has such a tremendous and unique power, Pearl chose to practice away from civilization on Mount Nantai. Kinda weird for rapping fish, but okay. Adult squids. There are a lot of times when you take a step back from Splatoon lore and just think, oh yeah, what in the world is happening here? That doesn't make any sense. This game is weird. And the main one has to be the lack of adult figures in this universe. It's almost only Captain Cuttlefish. Callie and Marie are about 17 and 19, so we aren't even sure about them. There's a shop owners whom are adults, but they aren't squids. The reason why is most likely since this is a game about young people and young people culture, so having adults would ruin the whole vibe of the game. But again, it is weird thinking about it, that all these kids are just walking alone in this game. Jellyfish are second-class citizens. This is another Splatoon fan theory / conspiracy, since there aren't any clues about it in game or really online. You really have to dig down to find anything about this. The theory must be that jellyfish are a second-ranked citizen of the Splatoon universe, since they aren't as important in game as the Inklings are. They're only really seen working while the Inklings go out and have turf wars and whatnot. They're also almost never seen in TV or on commercials in the game. Now, personally, I don't think that this is the case, both because there's no proof of it, and also, holy damn, I know Splatoon can have a dark lore, but a Jim Crow fish system is not a thing I was expecting to happen. Color code versus color code. Yeah, I'm not saying those numbers, alright. So what you see here are color codes, I guess they're called. It's a way of describing a different kind of color, which are especially useful doing coding, since it's an easier way to make a color. These colors are blue and yellow, which was supposed to be another set of colors which would have been put into the turf war, but was cut from the game for whatever reason. There were actually a bunch of colors not added to the game, but mostly in Octo Valley, where they were mostly various kinds of pink and purple. Jumping guy and hammer guy. So back in 2016, man, this game is old, some data miners stumbled upon two sets of code which was called enemy jump guy and enemy hammer guy. These were most likely supposed to be some new kind of enemy to the game, but it never went anywhere. It was added during update 2.4.0, and the data was found in the Squid Sisters amiibo files. More is not known, and we have gotten no information from Nintendo, so another mystery. The Kamabo Corporation is a front for Commander Tata's war crimes. So the Kamabo Corporation, which runs the whole deep sea metro, might not be as normal as you think it is. Just like the rest of the metro. The deep sea metro is more or less Tata's evil lair, where he does horrible stuff like literal murder and plans to destroy all living things on Earth. You know, main villain stuff. The Kamabo Corporation too might also be nothing more than an evil corporation, as it's more or less just Tata's front cover so he can hide his real intentions. Which are war crimes. Oh, how evil. The Kamabo Corporation is not known anywhere else but the Deep Sea Metro, and it's a perfect cover for the evil scummy things that's going on down there. Fried Egg vs. Omelette. Fried Egg vs. Omelette was supposed to be a splatfest at some point in Splatoon 1, but never really became into anything. This acts a lot like Hammer Guy and Jump Guy, since it was found in the data by a data miner, and just like the last one, this one is also a bit of a mystery. It was most likely scrapped, since an omelette is just a bunch of fried eggs with stuff in it, so it sounds pretty one-sided for a Splatfest. It must have been a close call for Nintendo, because there's already art made for it and a background color, so it must have been deleted in the very last moment it could. MSN 109. MSN 109 is a code for an item which got scrapped from Splatoon 2 in the Octo expansion. So yeah, more data found from some guy. It was apparently supposed to be a human-like mask which you could unlock somewhere in the deep sea metro. The description says, an infamous mask modeled after the final boss of Octo expansion, NILS. The model is first found in 300 and has a gear entry that was removed in 310. The gear entry indicates that it was supposed to be another piece of unlockable reward gear in Octo expansion. It also looks absolutely horrifying on Inklings. Exorcist ability. More files! So the Splatoon 2 file is apparently a jungle of secrets. In the message files, there's apparently an unused Exorcist ability. The Exorcist ability was supposed to increase your own respawn time, while also decreasing the respawn time of whoever splatted you. In the end, it got cut from the game for whatever reason. Most likely because people doesn't like to be punished for being actually good at the game. Getting punished for splatting the enemy is usually not a very attractive concept, but at least the name was cool. Spike's drug trade. So in Splatoon 1 and I guess 2, there is a minor character named Spike, also spelled with a Y, just because fuck it, right? He more or less sells you special gear and changes your slots by trading sea snails with him. In the second one though, you had to trade with merch, because Spike is in a cafe looking like a hipster. A thing that Spike hints at, both his character, his looks, and the fact that you do shady trades with him in an alleyway, suggests that he's trading drugs or is a drug dealer. I guess it fits with the whole young people culture, since a lot of young people do drugs nowadays, which are bad for you. That's right, this was a PSA all along. Don't do drugs, kids, stay safe. Also, in a way, sea snails might be a type of drug, actually, but we don't really know. Missing Coral Cap. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you here, I honestly almost went crazy trying to find an answer for this one. I've tried to search for it, but there is no missing Coral Cap. There is in fact a lot of Coral Caps in the game, but none are missing. Or I thought none were missing. Apparently not all of the Coral hats or caps made it from Splatoon 1 to 2. The data of some was found in the Splatoon 2 files, but nothing came of it. Turf Wars indoctrinate kids. This is another one of those theories that the Splatoon fandom loves to make, for good reasons, and this lore is crazy. So having a bunch of kids shoot guns, throw bombs, and just generally use weapons against each other from a very young age might not be the most healthy thing for their consciousness. It's fun, but we all have seen those paint gun kids and we know where they're gonna end up. But when you put the fact that they're training their kids for a literal war from a very young age, and the fact that the Inklings are more or less at war with the Octarians, then maybe a light bulb begins to blink in your head. It could be that they are preparing their youth to make the ultimate sacrifice for the fatherland and the better fish race, or maybe it's just a video game. I mean, come on, I doubt that this place is a dystopia. This place, impossible. Sanitization is murder. So in Splatoon 2 Octo expansion, you stumble into a new kind of enemy, the sanitized Octarians. These sanitized creatures are supposed to be a more difficult version of the regular ones. These Octos got sanitized by Tatar, who used a primordial ooze, I guess, to corrupt them. Even though it looks like a palette swap of regular Octos, it's much deeper than that. These Octos doesn't have any feelings, emotions, or sense of free will. They're controlled like robots by Tata. Not only with that, but Marina points out that they don't have any pulse either. So no pulse, no feelings, no free will. Are they dead? One theory is that they become kind of zombie, while others say they are dead meat puppets. But one thing is for sure, these Octolings might not be alive anymore, so Tata might be murdering some people. Well, some more people, I guess. 3, 7, 10, 15, 17, 18. This one really knocked my noggin around, I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, it's just numbers. It isn't agents, since that stops at 8. It's not sunken sea scrolls, since there's no connections between the numbers. So what could it be? Well, luckily, our friend Deco Scrubber knows. On Reddit, Deco Scrubber says the following. So apparently, Dead Fish has some missing albums, or missing songs rather. I don't know what this is supposed to mean, but it's odd, that's for sure. Ruins of Arc Polaris was a failed space colonization mission. The Salmon Run map, Ruins of Arc Polaris, is not only the worst map in the game, except for the low tide part, that's pretty cool, but it's also the scene of what looked like a serious disaster. In the background there can be seen what must be a space shuttle, preferably Polaris, which has very clearly crashed into the ocean, which is really expensive and a terrible disaster. The wiki also says that the space shuttle has worn out text reading private property in English, as well as featuring giant letters spelling ICA, which could be the CIA but Inkling. What this mission of the space shuttle was is not known, but the theory is that it was supposed to be a space colonization mission. It could be, but there's no real evidence of it. I personally think that the creator of Iceberg has been thinking about the wrong things here. There's literal English lettering all over the area, hinting at the fact that it might be a human-made device. Repurposed S2 version 100 gear. So, they repurposed some gear in Splatoon 2. Cool. I guess they just took some gear, either some weapons or clothes or both, from Splatoon 1 and added to the second one, but remade its purpose and gave it some more different stats. That might just be it. TechRef. So yeah, TechRef. I know what that is. Okay, I don't know what it is. I was able to find answers to most of these things in the Iceberg, but this one has haunted me. I cannot find anything about TechRefs on Google, Reddit, or anywhere. I don't even know what TechRef is. Is this a grandpa moment? Hey, those damn kids and their TechRefs! It could stand for technical review, but that's a bit far-fetched, even for me. So, I'm genuinely lost. I don't know what this is. I'm sorry, I just can't find anything. Octavia's human form. In many of the sunken sea scrolls from Splatoon 1, there is talk about a great turf war between the Octolings and Inklings. It has a whole World War I feel to it. Through the scrolls, a few characters are seen, like Judd, like normal, Captain Cuttlefish looking younger and more human, and finally a mysterious Octoling which is seen talking to Captain Cuttlefish in Scroll 16. The description says, before the Great Turf War, there were amicable relations between the Inklings and Octarians. They couldn't have dreamed that rising sea levels would force them to battle fiercely over the remaining territory. This Octoling does have a big resemblance to Octavia, both having wasabi and a similar helmet. But he has a human form in this picture, and we've only ever seen him in Octo form in-game. This is weird, but there's no doubt that that is supposed to be someone related to him, if not Octavia in the flesh. Inklings are cannibals. Inklings might actually be cannibals. It's a theory which has floated around the community for a long time. Since most mammals are dead, what do they eat in their diet to gain important things like protein? Usually they come from mammals through milk or meat, but here they don't have a lot of options. The diet of the Inklings is a mysterious and widespread one. Apparently, according to Nintendo Soup, this question has even been asked to Hashishi Nugami, the producer of Splatoon, who surprisingly said the following: "Inklings in this world are an evolved form of the squids in our world," said Mogami. "Things like the food chain still exists." Mogami said it's possible that squids exist in Inkopolis the way they do in real life, adding that if they do, it's definitely possible that an Inkling could potentially eat squids. So in a way, no, they don't eat each other, but they do eat squids. Which isn't cannibalism, because if a human ate a monkey, that wouldn't be cannibalism either, and that's the same thing for Inklings and squids. So no cannibalism. This part is debunked. Raw material. In the Octo expansion, there's a bit of talk about raw material. So raw material is what Tata needs to use his Ultra Mega Kill Everyone gun. He gets this raw material from the Promised Land, which later on in the game turns out to be a trap which would kill you. Now if you got that raw material from a machine that kills Octolings, then raw material might just be dead Octolings. Mr. Grizz is one of the last mammals on Earth. So, as you already know, most living creatures from our age has died in the Splatoon universe. But there must have been a few that survived, right? I mean, there's no way that all of Earth went underwater. Surely some mountains remain, and then maybe some species survived. There is one mammal that we don't really know a lot about, and that is the founder of Grizz, Mr. Grizz. Well, we don't know anything about him actually. We know he's the owner and a man, and that's it. He might even be a grizzly bear. He only talks through a wooden bear radio because his business is hunting salmon, so just like a bear, you know. If he was a bear, however, wouldn't it be weird that he's talking out of business at all? If he was a bear and was, well, real, then he would be one of the last surviving mammals on Earth, and a talking one for that sake, which is, again, very weird. NILS is a Statue of Liberty. NILS statue is a part of the final boss in the Octo expansion DLC for Splatoon 2. It is used by Tata to destroy all living things on Earth. The statue itself does look kind of familiar. We know for a fact that it was built by a human professor 12,000 years before the event of our Splatoon 2 events. So the odds of it being the Statue of Liberty is very high actually. We have to remember that the only things that killed all the living creatures before was rising water, which statues easily could survive. But there's something even more fascinating with the NILS statue, which the creator of this iceberg chart completely misses. As you can see in the statue, the dark gray area stops around the start of the nose, where it becomes a more light gray. We can see that the NILS statue only was submerged underwater up until the nose. This means that if this really is the Statue of Liberty, we know how high the water level rose during the events of the game. This thing holds a lot of lore apparently. The only problem with it being the Statue of Liberty is that the Statue of Liberty is green and made of bronze, while the NILS statue is made out of more grayish material like maybe marble or something similar. Octarians build WMDs. This is another fan theory from the depths of the fandom. This theory is kind of far-fetched, even compared to the other theories, but I can still see the thought behind it. If you are wondering, WMD stands for Weapons of Mass Destruction, which is anything from nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons, which can kill or harm a greater than average amount of people. I don't know what the average amount is, but it's greater than that. I guess Commander Tata has the WMD with that whole NILS statue which can kill all living things, but that isn't really the Octarians though. I could see why they would build them. They are a dying race, which is more or less at war with the Inklings, so WMD makes sense, but I doubt they actually have it. Metro Destination. So looking at this map of the metro in Splatoon 2's Octo expansion, you can see that it's pretty junky. I know metros can be confusing, but Christ. I don't really know what is meant by metro destinations. There is a promised land, but that's a bit weird to put up here. There's also the thanks stations and just stations in general, but that's just stations. The subways themselves doesn't really have a destination either, since they just kinda go around and around and around. Yeah, that's it. Splatoon 2's campaign was based on a false flag. So this is another one I had to wrap my head around. I tried to search for it on the internet, but nothing really came up. However, there was a bell that rung when I looked upon the Iceberg chart's comments on Reddit. Deco Scrubber herself actually made a comment about it, saying the following. It's a theory I came up with all the way back in 2016. Basically, the premise is that Captain Cuttlefish set up the whole thing to get someone to kill Doctarians for him. So it's a theory that Captain faked the whole hero mode just to get to massacre some people. This theory doesn't really hold up though, since there's a lot of things that wouldn't make sense. We know that we have to rescue the sapfishes from each level, since they got stolen by the Octarians. So is this a setup too? This might be a bit of an unstable theory. He did go to war with them, so maybe there's a bit of reason behind it anyways, but I still doubt it. The Professor. The Professor is an odd entity which can be found in the Sunken Sea Scrolls of Splatoon 1 and 2. He has a lot of connections with some of the characters of the game, like Judd and Tatar. He was originally the owner of Judd and the person who cryogenically froze him down so he could survive the disaster. And he created Tatar so he could pass down some of humanity's knowledge to the next generation of worthy life forms. The Professor himself can be seen in some of the scrolls, but that is all. He's a minor character who preserves some of humanity's culture and knowledge so that it all wouldn't disappear along with humanity when it all ended. He can be seen in some of the comics as well, but only for a small bit. Cuttlefish ate all the crabs. This is a bit of a weird one, but I can still see what they meant by it. So there aren't really that many crabs in Splatoon. We only really see one, which is Besk, who owns a shop in Inkopolis Square, but that's it. There are almost no crabs to speak of, even though there should be plenty. Well, as the title of the theory says, we might know an answer. We know for a fact that Captain Cuttlefish loves his Krabby Cakes, so the theory says that Captain ate them all. Yeah, I think it's a bit far-fetched, because no, just no. There's no way he would have eaten an entire species of animals. And we know that some still exist, but there are most likely more crabs around the world. We just don't see them. This theory is pretty whack, in my personal opinion. The fact machine religion. So this is a thing that is hinted pretty heavily in both the scrolls and during the Splatfest. So in scroll 24, a picture of a fax machine can be found with religious text splattered on top of it. The most important part of England culture, the Splatfest, also gets announced by a fax machine from our time. Even though it isn't directly fact or has been directly said, we can all see that this fax machine is supposed to be something extremely cultural and or religious to the Inklings. This is most likely one of the last fax machines that survived the Great Flood and somehow miraculously still works 12,000 years later. And mine breaks in like one. It's no piece of garbage. But even though it might sound strange to us that they're praying to the almighty fax machine, it still does make sense when you think about it. I mean, if the ancient humans ever found a working dishwasher from the Ice Age, you would have been damn sure that we would have been praying to it each and every godforsaken night. Allegory for racism and genocide. So in that whole race war between the Octolings and Inklings, there's a lot of underlying themes. And yeah, it is a race war. I don't want to hear any questions about it. It clearly is. There's a lot of things that are really dark in that whole conflict, like an entire people who has resorted to live underground in fear of their lives. There's also a lot of talk about the Octolings being greatly beaten away and have become an outcast of society. This is some kind of racist allegory where the Octolings have been thrown away by the Inklings because of their superior amount of arms, which is an actual quote from the game. There is also some hidden hints and facts which might point in the direction of an Octoling mass genocide by the Inklings. That whole Great Turf War is probably the biggest factor in all of this. A whole war between races which ended in the Inklings coming out on top, having defeated the Octolings, which had to resort to an underground network of sabotage, just having to wait until their time to shine will come, but it never will. That whole being beaten back in a war and being forced on the ground does sound familiar. As a guy who studies history and politics myself, this should remind you of the Polish and Jews under World War II. A bit far-fetched, I know, but there is a lot of facts which point in this direction. And don't even get me started on Herr Tatar. 10,006 dead Octolings. Oh, looks like I have to talk about Herr literally a war criminal anyways. So when you reach the end of the Octo expansion single player, Tatar lets you into a trap. You're supposed to reach an end of some kind, but it turns out to be a giant fucking blender where he was supposed to blend you into raw material. You get saved in the last second, but still, you were literal seconds away from dying. Even though that's terrifying enough, you're at test subject number 10,008. Yeah, we know that another Octoling survived as well, so that means that approximately 10,006 Octoling didn't see that trap. Tatar has literally killed 10,006 innocent people as a way of getting raw material. Again, this game is surprisingly dark. The Promised Land was always a lie. So this is one of the things you would have known if you weren't greedy like me and didn't buy the Octo expansion. The Promised Land is the final area in Splatoon 2's Octo expansion DLC. It is accessible after collecting all 4 Fangs inside the Deep Sea Metro. To access Promised Land, speak with the telephone instead of the station after collecting all 4 things, blah blah blah. Basically, this one giant lie, as told before. It's a blender that Tatar uses to kill you and turn into raw material. So his special weapon, which he wants to use to kill everyone, can work. So yeah, again, rated E for everyone. Gambit AI Remnants. This is another one that confused me, so I did what I always do when I'm lost. I jumped onto the Virgmobile and drove to Reddit to find some answers, and I kinda did. In the comments of the original Iceberg, Wemo030 says that Gambit is Splatoon 1's eternal name, and the AI remnants I'm not entirely sure about. Most likely leftover AI code from Splatoon 1 and Splatoon 2 Blitz. So I guess it's some leftover AI code. 14,000 years in the future. This is one that I'm surprised is all the way down here. We know for a fact that the Splatoon worlds happened in the future of our timeline, but for how long? Well, it is said that most machines which have survived since humanity's time on Earth are about 12,000 years old. This means that if we take 2000, which is about the year that most of these machines were made, and plus that with 12,000 years, so that's how old most of these machines actually are now in the Splatoon timeline, that means that Jesus is 14,000 years old in the Splatoon universe. This is actually quite astonishing that it took only 14,000 years to go from dumb inkfishes to smart ink humans. It took humans approximately 6 million years to evolve to where we are today, so the fact that they did that in a few thousands, impressive. Looks like Squid Brain beats Monkey Brains. So that's it, that's the Splatoon Iceberg done and dealt with. This Iceberg shot was very different as in the start, because not only is there original theories which I love, but it's also kind of weirdly set up. Most of the things in the latest and deeper parts were pretty well known, while some in part 3 was completely unknown to me. But even though that's the thing, we shouldn't ignore the fact it's a great Iceberg shot and it's very well made by Deco Scrubber, so give her a round of applause if we can. Anyways, if you have any iceberg shots you want to see covered, or have any critique against me, then please comment them in the comments below, because I am very stupid. So, yeah, that's it. Bye now.